This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by a one-on-one 3-evening workshop where I, Gregory Kamichuk, will look at your writing, your goals for the story, the state of your manuscript, and create a schedule that helps the book become real. Basically, what it means is I'll be your writing mentor for 3 evenings of your choice. To find out more about this 3-evening writer mentorship, search GMB Kamichuk, Big Cartel.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I am here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, also known as Chasing Artwork, and our excellent producer, Dan Vadeboncoeur. We are back from a break, the long winter's nap, if you will. And this is our first episode, I guess, ostensibly of our new season as we continue our ongoing coverage of the pandemic distance podcast recording struggles. How's that for an intro, Dan?
That's great. And my voice, is, I'm having mic issues, which is why I sound echoey. But we should have it all corrected by the time the next week's episode goes up.
So, if you're a new listener, congratulations on democracy in North America being restored, but our condolences on our poor sound quality. How's that?
It's been a few weeks. It really has. It's been it's been basically just sitting at home watching CNN all the time for me, quite a bit, as all these events unfolded south of the border from us. But yeah, it looks like everything's going to turn out okay for the most part.
I think so. I hope so. And I can see Justin through my little computer monitor screen at our studio that we once shared together. We now basically alternate so that we don't overlap too often in that same shared space. So it hurts my heart a little bit to see that big wall of art behind you and know that I don't get to be there. But I will say that neither you nor I, or Dan really, have been too idle in project creating. So why don't you catch us up, Justin, on what you've been up to these many days and weeks?
So I think last time we chatted was just before Christmas. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That sound about right? So since then, I've got a handful of projects that are all kind of in their infancy stages, like kind of planning and just kind of getting the foundation done. The only thing I've really completed was the last of the Dragon Nanny toy boxes have been created, and the toys have been spray painted or primed rather. And so those were kind of the last things to send out, as well as Dragon Nanny also had some commissions as rewards. So that kind of took up a lot of my December, was getting the toy boxes ready to ship out and getting the last commissions done. The first half of December was just... Are you allowed to, or do you feel comfortable naming your commission slots? Are those secret? Are those secret commissions? Or what did people ask you to draw? I'd be curious to know. Yeah, they've all been good about me. When I finish them, I get to post them as well, so it doesn't look like I've just been idle for this whole time. So there was one gentleman who wanted a Sword Art Online. Is a great little anime with, I think they're up to 3 seasons now. I've only seen the first season, and luckily he only wanted a scene based on the first season. So it's this big floating tower that's kind of falling apart, so very much in my shattered style, so that worked out really well. Another gentleman wanted a fairly famous Chinese general on his horse. He's got this awesome gold spear, and I'm not too familiar with the backstory of the character, but a really, really neat historical character. And then another gentleman wanted a character from Dragon Ball Z, so I got to do a Golden Frieza, which has kind of been on my list for a while as well. So I was happy to do that one. And then the last one that I'm just finishing up is based on, what's the series? not Dead or Alive. League of Legends, maybe. Characters from a rather large video game I'm not too familiar with, but neat characters, and he's got like his characters that he plays in the game customized the way he wants them. So I'm having that character and another character kind of dueling it out. So that's the last one that's going out right away.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question that came to me while you were telling me that. So when you have a character that you are not familiar with, or you don't know too much about, and you're being asked to do a representation in your style of this figure, what are some of your go-to like strategies for capturing what you see as the essence of a character you don't know too much about?
It's usually a combination of looking up other fan art of that character and then heading to YouTube and watching like almost any character that's got a fan base behind it. Somebody will have built a music video based on this character's like exploits. So like pick a famous anime or cartoon character, put it into YouTube. You're gonna get all these music videos based around that character.
Really?
And that'll give you like a bunch
you watch
of
all the multimedia love letters?
It's basically a highlight reel of all their like best and worst moments kind of thing. So that's been been a good tool.
Yeah, that's right. You can. Oh, cool.
Have you ever become a fan of one of these characters? Have you ever become a fan of one of those characters as a result of doing a commission for someone you'd never heard of? Watching one of these like multimedia love letters?
I don't know if from a commission, but definitely people have like requested things enough times that I've ended up checking whatever it is out and becoming a fan. Most recently, a bunch of people, I've been doing a lot of replaying old RPGs, and a bunch of people kept saying, you should play Xenosaga. You've never played Xenosaga? Like go back and get Xenosaga. And it was a game that I always wanted to get as a teenager, but never got a hold of.
Old school.
Yeah, like PlayStation 1, 1997, something like that. So I've gone back. Yeah, I've gone to the PlayStation store and bought Xenosaga, and about 25 hours into this epic old RPG that I missed as a teenager. And that's 100% because people just kept commenting like, you got to check this out, recommendations. Yeah.
Some of my questions were self-serving because I was doing a cover commission the last couple of days. And for someone who's not familiar with that, occasionally if you are an author and you want me to design your book cover, I'm happy to do so if my schedule and my interest allows. And so this one was particularly interesting because it was like my Midnight City books. It was like a PI film noir style character, but it was a fantasy twist. So it's an orc private investigator vibe, like peeking through a window with Venetian blinds, like the whole deal. But it's not a character, obviously, I know because it's from a book I haven't read. And meeting with the author and breaking down what the key elements of that character was virtually was an interesting thing. Justin will know, and any listeners that have met me at a show will know my sketchbook is never far away, but it's difficult in a Zoom environment to talk through plans. So I made a new camera setup that allows me to switch it as a down view into a sketchbook so that I can talk with clients and do thumbnail sketches and do that all. So last night I did a bunch of preliminary things, and I was going to then take a day off, think about it, spend a couple of days sort of pondering it, getting it together, and sort of finish up by the weekend, I thought. Instead, when I got off the call, I was so like fired up by how well I was able to get at the author's request through this new online setup. Like I hadn't realized how handcuffed by Zoom I was in having somebody explain their idea to me in the way that I like to work, which is to draw it in front of them while they describe it. And finally it worked again. I was like, my magic was back, that I think I stayed up until the sun rose working on that piece. I sent some of those things to you last night. Those are those ones I was sending you yesterday, Justin.
Yeah. Oh, they're great.
But I found myself triangulating in on 3 sort of different things. The Midnight City work that I had done in the past, this very noir centered, pulpy vibe. And then the new drawings that I've been doing in the new style, using the tablet to draw digitally for Moon Patrol. And then a completely different way of approaching color and contrast that I'd been using in my eye collector pages. So basically, like the last 8 months of pandemic skills, I finally all got to use on a new piece in slightly different ingredients. It's kind of like having a new set of spices in the cooking cabinet.
Yeah.
I was having such a good time, and then suddenly I was like, why is it so light outside? Oh, that's the sun. I should probably go to bed. So it was nice. I haven't had that moment where I just completely lost track of all time for a good while, like just there's always something to worry about these days. And I forgot all my worries and just made a orc private investigator peeking through the blinds with a pistol and a fedora and some really, really specific Rembrandt lighting. It's quite wonderful.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
So when you do that, when you come, like, think about an orc, where do you like start to kind of come up with an image of an orc? Is it based in Tolkien? Is it just based on kind of what you think an orc is, or is it based on what the author tells you an orc is?
I'm glad you asked that, actually, because my secret weapon was a member of our creative community here in Winnipeg. So what happened was, as I was doing the sketches, the author in question, and the book is not announced yet, so I'm being vague there because that's his business about announcing it. And then once it's announced, we'll get him on the podcast to talk about it. But he described the main character's nose as being more like a lion's. And something occurred to me that I had seen a 3D rendering by Sarah Wild in the last couple of weeks of this crazy monster orc-ish kind of character that had this note. Like, I just saw the nose that she had rendered in 3 dimensions perfectly. And it was the only thing I could think. And so I said it to him, and I explained, I think we should reach out to Sarah and see if she minds letting us use this model, or at least some elements of this model, to stand in for our normal character. Now, what the dear listener might not know is that in the great pulp tradition of pulp cover paintings, you would usually bring in live actors, set up the lighting, that duotone, not duotone, but really dualistic, they call it Rembrandt lighting, where it's really lit on one side and really dark on the other. You would do that with a bunch of different models. You'd pay those models for a little bit of their time, usually a percentage of what you get paid as the cover, right? You would pay those models, and then you would use their likeness to help render the cover. So in that pulp tradition, I reached out last night to Sarah Wild and said, hey, would you mind sending your orc to model for my cover? And she thought that was really funny. I offered her, so we're working out all the details there, but he had the perfect chin and just the right nose. I edited him a fair amount to remove, she had all these wonderful bone embellishments and horns and protrusions that didn't quite fit the character that the author had described, but it would be kind of like the way Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury. He's unmistakably Samuel L. Jackson, but he's playing Nick Fury. Mm-hmm. So the way I thought about it was Sarah's orc from her personal project is playing this character in this story on the cover of this book. And it was just such a fun, mental exercise to have that as a resource, to set up the composition and the lighting myself, but then to, arrange a pose of a person that doesn't exist, that came out of someone's imagination, who was then happy to have it included. Sarah said, I'm just so glad that he has a life of his own. I love this dude. But I haven't had a chance to work on him very much because she's busy with other projects in her pipeline. So it was like we got to collaborate on this secret other imaginary life of an imaginary character posing for the cover of a book, playing a different imaginary character. And all of that was what I spent into the wee hours working on last night. And I just had a hell of a good time. It reminded me of the real power of escape in art making, right? Yes, there was a project. Yes, I'd been hired to do it. Yes, all of these other things. I had a schedule that would let me do it over a few days. But once the fire was stoked, there was no amount of regular rest that was going to make me feel as good as following that idea right to its conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's part of, like, anyone out there who writes stories or makes art or writes music or is just involved in creative expression, they know that, for lack of a better way to describe it, that mental illness trigger of, like, okay, this is probably not good for me, but I'm going to just keep working on this until it's finished. I ran down that rabbit hole yesterday and it was quite wonderful. What was nice is that usually that happens when I'm supposed to be working on a different deadline.
But it was actually for a client this time.
Yeah, it was actually for the client that I was supposed to be working for. And I, ended up finishing ahead of schedule. Or it's not quite finished yet because we're going to do some lighting tests and try some other things. The cool thing about working digitally, or the way that I'm working this out, is I left all the lighting paths as separate layers. So I mixed a bunch of colors. It's like a 2-spot lighting effect that like splashes across the character's face, colds on one and like a neon on the other. And we can play with the author's favorite colors and play with the color that will match the logo and just play around with all that lighting effect without it changing the composition, which is another thing that I've been learning how to do as far as working with clients, is figure out what part they're most likely to ask about changing and leave that as a layer that's easy to change. And barring that, offer up a point in which, for the client, you can say there's certain elements we won't be able to change. Like once the composition is rendered, once this character is sort of drawn, he's sort of as he is, but we can change the lighting all day long to make you happy, right? So it gives everyone a sense of some control, which we all crave so deeply in this strange world we found ourselves in. So it was a surprisingly fruitful evening I spent last night. And then I had a very disheartening meeting with a publisher this afternoon, which basically pushes back the sequel to Automatic Age probably to 2022.
Oh, that's too
bad. Which is sad, but also not unexpected. We basically had a good news, bad news meeting of like, where are you in the project? Oh, I'm on track. Where's the world in ordering books and how is that working? Oh, that's way off track. Where is conventions?
What kind of insights did you get about where the publishing world is?
Yeah, okay. So I think of value to a listener here who is doing any of that kind of stuff. A little context in case this is your first episode. Before COVID, Justin and I would travel to anywhere between 20 and sort of 30, 35 events around the world promoting our stuff and hand selling it in person, which means that we could have a pretty brisk business in book sales with no distributor in the middle. When you're dealing with a regular publisher, of course, they have distribution and bookstores as a model. So dealing with Great Plains, which is the publisher of Automatic Age, they were filling me in on the fact that while the supply chain is relatively unaffected, if you need to get a book to a bookstore, there's no problem there. But bookstores themselves are all closed, and most books that people have not heard of before, they buy on impulse or through browsing. And so the feedback is that most book sales that are occurring, and if you look at the stats, actually, 2020 books statistics for sales are way up. But what people are buying is very specific. it's usually big name authors that they've already heard of, that they know of. People are buying what they know and have heard of. And
They're kind of
so
catching up on all the books they've been wanting to read the last couple of years.
from their favorite authors. So if that author has been around a while, that author has seen a huge swell in their back catalog. New authors and mid-listers and independent authors and independent bookstores have not made any gains. In fact, they have slid pretty far down the chain because that's not what people are buying. When you search a new sci-fi book, what do you get? The top 10 authors will always be authors that have the biggest SEO and the most people have heard of them. And then you order that book and you're off to the races. So it's hard for those of us who are trying to make a name for a new series to crack that code. Now, that's, sad. But the stats are bearing out that reading in general is on the rise. That maybe what we will see post-pandemic is a infusion of people who are back in the habit of reading, who are now going back to events and saying, yes, I like reading. I've been reading a lot. I read more than I used to. I'll take a chance on this new book. So I'm hoping that 2022, 2023 expectation that some public events and shows will return to normal will also have with it a new set of well-trained readers who just are looking for new stuff. So it's hard in the short term, but I think in the long term, it might be good for all of us independents.
You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe.
I think we're going to have a resurgence of a lot of different things when everything finally goes back to normal, right? People are going to travel more. People are going to go out more. I think the cons are going to be nuts, to be honest. When they actually get going again, the cons are going to be really well attended, and people are going to be eager to get out and gather with their friends. So yeah, I'm optimistic about what's coming after this is all over, but it's just a matter of getting there. It's a matter of getting, and we're still unsure when it's going to happen. We're still unsure of the time frame, right? Even though there's a vaccine, even though the end is somewhat in sight, we're still not sure if it's going to be this year, next year, or when. But obviously, for that publisher, they feel that to be safe, they're going to wait until next year.
A good point, actually, to make here is that it was not them telling me, we have to wait next year, your book is canceled or pushed back, because we have a contract. It was them saying, what do you feel will be the best for the book? And us sort of coming up with a plan that really meant that if we want a book to find a readership, you need to have, the readers available. And so rather than put oh my gosh, I must have my ego served and my advance paid and my book made right now, damn it, that just didn't make any sense. It's a story I love writing. It's a story I've been working on. It ties into a bunch of other things. So all it'll mean is that I'm done way early as far as the publishing schedule goes. And that's, kind of a new position for me to be way like a year early on finishing a book. Whoa, that's gonna be wild, actually, to see how that goes. Think of all the review copies we can send out. So it was us discussing what is real rather than what we want, right? And so we were just looking at numbers, and it's interesting because there was a member from marketing, and then my editor from the book was also there, and we were just sort of talking it through. And it wasn't like it was by no means a summit on here's what must be done, and more because they're a smaller publisher and I'm very nosy about the details, us figuring out some other strategies that could work that maybe we haven't thought of yet. I told them lots of facts about our Dragon Nanny Kickstarter and how that backlist worked. I shared some stuff that I had heard from some other author friends, and particularly some people who I know who work with the New York Comic Con, who were giving me some sort of heads up on what is likely for shows. Their fear is that when the shows reopen, is they think that the attendance might be maybe 20% of what it used to be.
I think there's going to be some hesitation from people, but once people feel safe, they'll come back. I'm confident that they will come back. People love, like, the love of conventions is not gone away. People still love these things. They love celebrating their fandom. I
totally agree. I agree with that.
Numbers might be
what
down.
we're talking about though is what they're talking about is the necessity of that 6-foot gap.
Yep.
Will change how the space is managed and thus how the attendance would be managed. And so it's not that they don't think people would return. No one has it. I am like you, Dan. As soon as it's safe, I'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
But as we have learned, most people don't do what's good for them during a pandemic. And so I think what we will see is a government leery of giving permission for events that gather 100,000 people in one place, a green light, right? So instead it will be, do a small show, have 5,000 people, see how many of them die.
I bet you I could hold a show in the spring and people show up. I don't know if it would be allowed or not, but if I held the show, I did a fan quest in June or whatever, I think I would get people showing up there. But whether or not it wouldn't be probably as good as it normally is because of still not everybody having the vaccine. I wonder what it's like to have the vaccine. I wonder if you feel vulnerable.
Could you do it outside?
Oh yeah. I actually talked to some people about that, and the cosplayers pushed back and said cosplay is not a great thing to do outside, apparently. So that might be an issue if we do it outside.
Telling prints is kind of tricky too.
Oh no, that for sure be true.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's.
Yeah, I've done it. Well, I mean, Justin and I have both done outdoor shows. They're a challenge.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think I do look forward to it, but again, it's going to be a while. I was saying, I wonder if do you guys know anybody who's got the vaccine yet?
No.
Yes.
Oh, you do? I wonder what it feels like to be like
a friend of my dad.
I have the vaccine. I am immune. I have the power. You know, it's like being.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see because the current science on it, which is ever evolving, but it's that just because you have taken the vaccine does not exclude you from the possibility of carrying it to others.
Right.
So hopefully it won't embolden the wrong people to then take needless risks.
I think about somebody like going into a store without a mask saying, I don't need a mask. I got the vaccine. Screw you guys. I'm good.
Well, right. Let me ask you this through the lens of a convention organizer, Dan. Let's say you have a busload of people who tell you they have the vaccine and they're not wearing masks, and you have no way to prove either of those things.
You can't. You have to be sure, and it's going to be everyone wears masks until we get to the point where we don't have to, right? But no, I can't take them at their word. It's unfortunate, but I can't. You have to have proof, and I don't know what kind of proof they're giving people. I don't even know if you get anything when you get the vaccine. Do you get a card saying you got the vaccine? You get a little stamp in your hand? I don't know.
And then how long is it before people start printing their own cards and forging their own stamps?
Right.
Making it, yeah. I don't know. It's been a weird journey, this whole thing, and I've been very surprised at what people have done, to protest the various restrictions and do all kinds of different things. But we're just going to play it safe and wait until most people have been vaccinated, and then we'll take a look at when that stuff can come back. I'm optimistic about a Halloween event. I am.
Yeah.
I really do. By the time, and we should have our new con here in Winnipeg. Hopefully that all works out. So we'll have a new convention in October. I'm hoping,
I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but not given the way our current government is handling things, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, no, that's true. Good point.
Doesn't seem like if you were in charge, Dan, I would be there. I would be there.
Okay, thank you.
But you're not going to be the one in charge.
No, I'm not.
So I'm a little more cautious.
So I was curious as to what it's going to look like when things go back to normal. Like all these publishers, I imagine, are getting more submissions than usual because everybody, like every creative, is coming up with ideas and projects and books and sending them off. But publishers aren't necessarily pumping out as much new content. when the floodgates open, is it just going to be like triple the amount of books being published? Or are they just going to have a much healthier selection to choose from what they want to publish?
I think that's a great point. It's a great point. Here's my 2 cents on that.
Everybody's producing or making stuff right now, but it's not necessarily making it to the world.
So if you're a publisher, well, you are a publisher, Justin, but let's imagine you were like a large publisher that maybe had 50 titles. You had room for 50 titles a year, right? And your submission pile goes up. The quality of that submission pile, I have to imagine, has increased.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is going to happen is the 50 books you publish are a better set of 50 books than they would have been before. But I don't think you are going to take a financial risk to publish 60 new titles or 70 new titles in that first year after things open up. That doesn't seem like what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is that agents and agented submissions are going to increase, right? There's going to be less time for publishers to take a risk because there's so many more talented people who are stuck at home and produced books of knowable quality, right? That same way that publishers sell what's selling. So if they look at their list right now and they see every book from an established series is selling more than it used to, are they likely to expand an existing product line, or are they going to take your new book, right? The conservative ones are going to expand that existing publishing line, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the show floor, because there's going to be a lot of people who are outside of traditional publishing that have a finished book that's ready to roll in a way that they've never been able to do before.
I would have followed you, my brother. My captain. My king.
There's a few dozen that I've been following that are actually endeavoring to finish a creator-owned project for the first time, I think, ever since I started following them online, right? They're concept artists, they're people who work in video games and draw on the side, they're people who are authors that do projects, on the side. They suddenly have this time, many of them, to do an actual self-directed, quality-focused project with no end in sight because they don't know when they get to go back to work anyway. So It's how they're doling away the hours. So I feel like the competition for us is going to be very stiff.
Actually, I was wondering about that too. Like, say back at conventions, what's an artist alley going to look like that first year back? Because how many what used to be full-time artists have had to get different jobs now, that when conventions become a thing again, are they going to have the luxury of traveling like they used to go to these conventions? So I'm wondering if there's going to be a lot of empty tables the first little while.
Or will there be tables full of people who had all year to produce things they loved dearly and just had no place to do? Like when conventions first started, that first big expansion where it went from being hotel rooms to convention centers. I'm old enough, and you and I are long enough in the tooth in the convention game to remember that swell.
Yeah. That was a
part of what drove, what a magical time. But part of what drove that was people who were hobbyists who were like, oh, maybe I'll do a show in September, and would produce work all year without any thought to the commerce of it. They just produced their best work all year, whatever small item it was they were making. They were of usually exceptional quality. And then they'd show up at a show, sell out. And then it occurred to them, oh, wow, there's actually a business model here. When the business brain overtakes the art brain, often you see a drop in quality so that speed of production could fill the gap, so that you sell to more customers who have less care for quality. Maybe we'll see a return to that earlier space. Maybe. Or maybe everyone will be so desperate that they'll just be selling whatever's in their basement.
Hey, Google, stop. You set off my Google Home there, Greg. I don't know what you said, but...
Sorry. Something went wrong controlling Xbox.
What?
Please try again.
Google, turn on Dan's Xbox.
Listen. It just started playing this out of the blue. Hey, Google. Hey, Google, stop.
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 Sorry.
What's amazing about that?
Controlling Xbox. Please
Hey, Google, I love you.
Hold on a second.
Oh my God.
Although that might have been, my son has set up some, like, you can set up these protocols with the Google Home and have a key phrase, and then it does a set number of different tasks. Like, my son has played around with this. So sometimes he does that from his phone. Maybe that's what happened. But it said something about space, and you were talking about space. So I think it did hear you, Greg.
Google, play space.
I unplugged it. It's all good.
Oh, you murdered her.
Yeah, that's right. I just wanted to put her to sleep for a bit.
All right,
Anyway.
we'll probably have to edit all that out, but it was pretty funny. I forget what we were talking about, but the change in quality of product, I think, and
we'll see a bit of a reset.
Yeah,
because I think we had kind of seen it because we'd experienced so many conventions. We were starting to see a bit of stagnation of people just doing the same thing over and over again, the same booths just doing the same thing year after year after year. And maybe that's just from our perspective, like, because we're there all the time, we're seeing it all the time, but it definitely felt like people weren't experimenting and bringing their A game as much as just coming to their job. And, the passion had kind of been bled away into the business.
it did stand out that was occurring. But I'll point out, oh man, there was something I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, when shows were primarily local, right? You were guaranteed almost to see the same people. If you did 5 shows locally in a year, you're going to see a lot of the same faces if they're your main customer, right? And we've said many times that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your repeat customers. So these are people you're going to see all the time. When you did 5 shows in the same city, it behooved you to have new things for them, which I think prompted more innovation. As those same people started going from city to city to city to city in all kinds of different zip codes and country codes, they didn't have to innovate as much because the audience was going to be new.
Yeah.
And so they could, right, just play the numbers game. Maybe a shrinking back to local shows first before international shows become a thing again will increase that innovation. And so pursuant to that, Justin, shows are open again. Let's play imaginary games, positive imaginary games. Shows are open. They're local. You haven't done shows in a while. You're planning your first small event. Let's say it's going to have 1,000 people at it, maybe 2,000 people, just small and local. What are the things that you're going to do differently now that it's post-COVID?
So kind of the silver lining for like me with a business hat on for what happened with this whole COVID lockdown was I really took a year to build up a proper website and proper website store. And then really get a way better handle on online sales and shipping product than I ever had before. And this was just a function of my customers were still wanting to buy things and I didn't have the best setup. So I hunkered down and took a couple of weeks and months and built up a much better Chasing Artwork store than I'd ever had in the past. And looking forward to when conventions are a thing again, a big thing that always came up was I can only bring kind of the newest portfolio of work to a show. I can't bring hundreds of pieces. But now I foresee this tandem income of doing conventions in person But then also for these people who want older work or want more specific things, I can then have them go to the store right there on the floor and custom order all this other stuff that I kind of had to do like a case by case basis before. So now that I have the online and the in-person stuff figured out, it's a whole, much stronger presence. So I'm really excited about having those two things working with each other at conventions.
It's funny you say that. I had an interesting idea that I think you're best suited to capitalize on better than I am right now. When the shows reopen, you printed those Chasing Artwork sketchbooks, those blank books.
Yes.
For people. I know you and I have both talked about doing another print run of those and what they're good for and how, it's great public outreach and all that kind of stuff. But you know how Friesen's, and Donovan, I know you listen to our podcast, so this is basically Friesen's idea that I'm trying to apply in the small realm, is what if the next printing of our blank sketchbooks, the first 4 or 5 pages of that were color ads for prints and the web store and an example of what's available and where to get it. So that when someone is in their doodle notebook, which has a couple hundred pages of drawing and sketching, there's also this little front section, the same way that Friesen's gives those really actually quite excellent hardback sketchbooks to their customers that have the printing examples in the front. Like, here's all the bright color printing and all the different technology we use. And here's 10 examples of excellent printing. That's in the front of a very useful, practical book that I have 2 on my desk right now that I make notes in. I decorate them so that they have the right nerd cred. But basically the front of them are those pages of examples of what their business can do if you want them to do their business. There's no reason why our sketchbooks couldn't do the same thing. Like, here's a bunch of prints, right? And print examples, kind of like our menu sheets. And then the rest of it is the sketchbook. So that when we leave them at schools, when you give them as gifts, when you spiff off a loyal customer with a handy notebook, there's also a secondary outreach component to it. Might be a neat way to do it.
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints. Oh, I'm getting one.
The catalog, also from us idea, just printing a really nice, like 8.5 by 11 double-sided. So you could include that with every single book order that comes, that happens, and then you can update it, right? Like, you can have a 2021, the first 6 months, like, here's everything that's available. And then as new things come out and you do new things, all you have to do is update that 8.5 by 11 and reprint new ones. And then they just keep going in every single book that goes out the door.
Right. I wonder if there's a way, because the first thing I would do if I had a blank sketchbook with an insert is I'd throw that insert away. So if there was a way to make that a sticker or some kind of thing that you can adhere to or insert or connect to the existing blank book in a way that makes it kind of counterproductive to get rid of it, so you might as well just leave it there.
The time constraints, like, if you the sketchbooks that I printed, I think I printed like 3 years ago, and like they don't move super quick. So had I done that, they'd be very outdated by now. Like, I'd still have some of the products, but so I just worry, like, if it's kind of how long are you going to be happy with that catalog page before you feel like it's very outdated?
Yeah, good point. I wonder what the middle ground is. Maybe the dear listener already has a better idea. Feel free to share it with us. But I love when you have something that you can give to someone who has been a loyal supporter of your work that actually has a practical value to them. And that's what I think those blank books are. If they're, if you're a writer or an artist, a blank book is useful to you. But you also have to keep the lights on. So what is a way that you can remind people that there are ways they can support you? I suppose you can just put a link to your website on there.
What if
I feel like there's something
that 8.5 by 11 is double-sided? What if the front is your newest piece when you print it? So it's a piece of artwork on
Oh, I
the
like
front,
that.
and on the back is, here's what I've come out with in the last year. And then every couple of months, when you have a bunch of new stuff, you reprint a new free print that comes with everything, but it's also got a catalog on the back.
See, now you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
That's
like
beautiful because
still might
if you
throw
like
it up.
it, yeah. If they're fans that pin it on their wall or their bulletin board or, you know, keep it or frame it or whatever. And if you made it on the right print quality, like the stuff we normally do, but you just make the reverse printing. And we looked at, actually, we've had this discussion about taking back catalog prints and printing things on the back of them, which we discussed with the printer, and that is possible. So you could take stock of things that you are happy to give away to customers for free because it's back catalog stock, print that new catalog on it, and then you could use less paper, right? You reuse it before you recycled it. It doubles as an ad, but it also has the great print quality that our limited prints would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope to find a dear listener doing the same trick one day out there. Yeah, interesting.
Like as a child, almost my favorite parts of any toy was the back of that blister pack that said also from, you know, McFarlane Toys. Like, look at all these other cool things that I don't have, but would drool over, right? Like you would have the one toy and that was great, but like, imagine if you had 30 of these other like amazing looking toys on the back.
The double-edged sword of free market capitalism.
Yeah.
So sharp on our young minds. Oh, those delicious times. The G.I. Joe list, the catalog that would sometimes come when you got a vehicle, it would have a couple of pages, like a folded leaflet that showed you all kinds of other things. You're right. Mm-hmm. The nostalgic power of that is quite profound.
I had
so we should harness it.
Looking back, I had the Dino Riders movie on VHS, and
I didn't know they made a movie of Dino Riders.
Well, it was like, I think the first like 3 episodes just kind of like put together, but they actually put commercials in the movie of the Dino Rider toys. So as a kid, not only did I love the movie, but then it would have ads for the most epic dino toys with robot parts on them, like scattered throughout. So I think my mom probably hated that movie because it was like it would be constant me running and being like, can I get this? Can I get this? And
see, this is the part of the overlap between I want to be a working artist, I want to make art, and I have to sell art that I despise. That part of marketing, which we all know works, that it does yield results. I wonder at the ethical ramifications of programming young children's minds.
Well, there's a reason why they're not allowed to do that anymore. Like they got rid of that. They changed the rules. In the 80s, all the cartoons were basically ads for toys, and then they changed the rules. Now the cartoons aren't as good because they can't do that anymore.
Do yourself a favor and YouTube Dino Rider toy commercials. They're like still the coolest looking.
Oh yeah, toys. No, I follow a couple different channels, both on YouTube and TikTok, that explore nostalgia like this and explore old toys and old ads. I love that stuff. I live for it. So it's a big part of my day is going through stuff like that for sure. It's a lot of fun. I love how the backyards of these kids would be so like they'd have waterfalls in their backyard and rocks and like a quarry. They had all this awesome setup for all their toys. I'm like, who has that? I had a garden in the sandbox.
Bricks like of plastic bricks for the toys to smash through.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't sell those plastic bricks. If they did, right, they would have sold a lot of those plastic bricks. Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. One thing that I like about the kids' books that we sell them to the parents. We sell, basically books with messages. So the parents buy the book and then read it with their kid. And then if their kid likes it, it's it's the right direction of that interest, right? A kid haggling a parent to buy a thing, I don't like so much as a parent deciding this is of value for my children. I prefer that flow myself as a parent.
Well, I would also prefer my kids support local artists, by buying your books and that kind of stuff. Like, I like to promote that with my kids. My daughter, by the way, loves Dragon Nanny. And she loves the artwork. That's like her main thing. And that's, again, she wants to do this stuff, right? She wants to be an artist. So I give her that stuff to show her what's possible, what you guys do and what's possible for her to do. And she loved finding the dragon that we named in the book. So it was just overall a big hit with the kids for sure.
But that's an example of a book that it'd be so different if we were like in a company like, those old like any kind of company with a marketing team, and like, it'd be more condensed. There wouldn't be with our publications, like the creativity in the story comes first, and kind of the business and how to target people comes second. And I think that's a book that would be completely different if there was a team like that attached to it.
And I think for the dear listener, it's important to point out that it doesn't mean that we don't care about the business side, but we do the book first. And when the book exists, then Justin and I switch hats, and we then look at the object as it occurs, right? This object now, as it exists now, how do we sell this object? If we had a marketing team and a pre-sales team, there is no way that there would have been those days at the beach pages in Dragon Nanny, because it wouldn't have been worthwhile from their perspective to put those in.
Bullying
it's necessary for the story.
Now. So how do we get bullying into this book and show how bullying is bad?
Yeah.
And I bring that up because that's
you get that hot button issue.
How can we shoehorn in hot button issues into this story, regardless of whether it fits or not? But that's what sells.
Well, yeah, and that's the difference between, say, what we do and, say, what a classic entrepreneur will do. There's a lot of people, I went to the entrepreneurship program at Red River, and what I'll say is actually paraphrasing of something I heard Justin say once after he had a few fizzy pops at a convention. We were sitting around and someone said, "You guys are a small business, you're entrepreneurs." I don't know if you remember this, Justin, but you said, "No, we are not entrepreneurs. We're artists who figured out how to sell what we made." An entrepreneur doesn't care if they're selling coffee or cars or widgets, as long as they're making money. We want to sell the stories we make. So we're not really entrepreneurs in that regard. And I agree with that. I'm paraphrasing you, and you were maybe not quite as eloquent as that, because you had a few fizzies, but I remember that moment of being like, all right, this is the right kind of guy to share a studio with, because deep down, right, if Dragon Nanny wants to go to the beach, Dragon Nanny's going to go to the beach for a few days. Okay, we're going to let that happen.
This is no mere ranger. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. You owe him your allegiance.
If you are so tied into just what sells, you miss out on why you're making it in the first place. Speaking of nostalgia, one of my big, one of the things I loved the most when I was a young reader was the Forgotten Realms fantasy books, particularly those written by Douglas Niles and R.A. Salvatore.
Oh, yeah.
Now, R.A. Salvatore has been writing these Drizzt Do'Urden books forever. He's still writing them. And I recently watched a video of him talking about his creative process, and people asking him like, "Oh, how do you feel about being so successful writing these books?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't even think about it." And they're like, "Oh, well, you were so successful that you kept making them." He's like, "No, I kept making them, and luckily they were successful." Yeah. And his point that I liked the most was, a sunset costs the same for us both. He says, and that's what I stop work to go and look at. is the sunset. It doesn't matter what car I could buy, I'd still want to stop and look at the sunset. And so if you are only making your art so that you can have a nicer car, I guess that might make you an entrepreneur, but it doesn't make you very honest in the kind of life you're living, right? And so, yes, it's tricky to make a living selling art, but if you are going to, when people talk about sellouts, that's what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
People who find out that pink fuzzy cat drawings sell more than what they like to draw, and so they give up on what they like to draw to sell pink fuzzy cat drawings. I will also add a caveat that as far as I know, pink fuzzy cat drawings are not a viable business plan.
Are the cats fuzzy or are the drawings fuzzy?
Oh.
Now you're talking. That is a genius idea, Dan. Fuzzy drawings. Tactile.
Pink fuzzy drawings of cats.
Right?
That's what we want.
Wait, remember velvet paintings?
Yeah.
Maybe we could bring that back.
There you go. Yeah.
Those are cool.
Like instead of velvet Elvis, velvet internet cats. My gosh.
That would work.
Forget writing my next book. I'm going to just produce velvet internet cat drawings.
All right.
Although I do feel like one area of fan art that feel compelled to leap into that I've never felt compelled to leap into before now. I feel like there's going to be a fair amount of Bernie Sanders fan art when the convention season hits.
Everyone's going crazy about
You're
it.
laughing, Dan, but I mean it. I've seen a lot of artists lately drawing a lot of Bernie Sanders, and I cannot figure it out. But guaranteed, there's going to be a whole subsection of fan art at shows that it's just Bernie Sanders and those darn mittens.
Yeah.
I
He
promise.
showed up at the inauguration, which I guess it was kind of cold in Washington there that day, but he was dressed like a minus 30 degree Winnipeg winter. Like he was bundled up, right? He's not having any of that cold. And that's why I think people like that.
He's an
so
old
much.
man.
He's an old man, yeah. So is Joe Biden, but whatever. You know.
Yeah, but Joe Biden has the hot lights on him
It's
and the sniper scopes. Bernie just has a folding lawn chair in a cement bunker. That's all he had to say,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I look forward to that subset.
Yeah.
Also, I'm glad that all the pro comics will be gone from Comic-Con, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll all be back in full force.
Although what kind of comics?
There was at New York Comic-Con, there was a bunch of tables selling super right-wing pro-Trump comics.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So we'll see what happens. Now, this is not to say I don't think they should be allowed to do that, right? Free speech is important. I just think hate speech should be limited, right? Free speech, yes. Hate speech, no. So
I would be curious to see what that looked like, what a pro-Trump comic book looks like.
I looked through some of them. I let them do the spiel at a few, let them sell it to me. Unfortunately, I think my velvet scarf and my tight jeans probably
give you away.
They gave me away. They were very dubious about my interest in their properties. But they wanted the sale, but they felt like it was a trap somehow.
Okay.
And in a way they were right.
Yeah.
Now, again, should they be allowed at shows? You're a show organizer, Dan.
I mean, as long as it's not offensive, right? You're right. As long as it's not hate speech or offensive, and we push the line. Like we have a number of artists here in Manitoba who do push the boundaries of what they can put up there. And I've had people.
I'm looking at you, Ghost Dick.
Ghost Dick, yeah, Ghost Dick. I've had a conversation with Nico about that. And generally he says that he doesn't get a ton, he gets some hate from people saying it's inappropriate to draw a penis as the main character of your.
I think the problem there is he has 4 kids' books alongside it.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, he's got his family-friendly Bears book. Then beside it is the phallic drawing. So it's kind of like you gotta pick a lane.
Your audience. No, but I've had different people say they've done parodies of, like, speaking of Dragon Ball Z, parodies of Dragon Ball Z, but in a bit of a sexual joke involved in it. And I said, well, I'd rather you not have that up on display for everybody to see. But you can have it somewhere and be able to show people that it is available if they want to buy it. But just
like
don't
a big
have it
sign
front
that
and
says,
center.
don't put it front. A big sign that says, "Ask me about my Dragon Ball porno" or whatever. Right? I'll say though, in the defense of Nico Rudolph and Ghostic, which anyone listening can feel free to Google, you'll find some interesting things. At least everyone, at least half of the people on Earth have a penis. So having a joke about a penis isn't really that bad alongside your kids' books. You could argue that me having Dragon Nanny next to Midnight City is just as offensive. Someone who is interested in Dragon Nanny that opens Midnight City, a body horror murder mystery, could be pretty offended that those two things are sharing a table. So, and since hatred and murder aren't something that everybody should do, you could say that Midnight City is more offensive than a little Willy comic, right?
True.
It's hard to say. But I think what Ghostic, Dragon Nanny, and Midnight City all have in common is they don't tell you who you should hate.
Right,
and, so
and that's what the Trump comics did. Is what you said, right?
They told you who you should hate.
Yeah.
Right. Who wasn't allowed to live there if they wanted to. So yeah, it's a weird world, man. It's gotten me so nostalgic just talking about shows in such depth that I feel like I need to make a book setup just on my desk here and maybe try to sell it to my kids.
Just have your kids walk by and pretend to be interested in your stuff.
Yeah, to pretend to be interested. Thanks, Dad. That's hurtful.
Icon they're doing their Winterfest event virtually.
Yeah.
The other day I set up my virtual table for the Icon Winterfest, which was kind of fun. What I really appreciated about that as well was they were charging $5 for a table for the virtual events versus there's been some conventions who really tried to, they made some pretty outrageous promises and were asking for some pretty big fees to basically list your online store on their site for a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say this actually just prompted it. You reminded me. You had asked me earlier feedback from the publisher about book sales and related things. I did a bunch of online book festivals, right? Yeah. And at a book festival, if you get a couple hundred people to come and sit and listen to you yammer on about how you made it, the book, I mean, not like in your life, it often would result in a fairly reasonable amount of sales, regardless of whether they'd heard of your book or not. And what we saw was almost no uptick in sales. Like virtual appearances at book events held virtually do not translate into sales. Are they fun? Yes. Do they support readers? Yes. And writers? Yes. Is it financially viable to you, the small publisher or small press, to count on it for any kind of revenue? No, definitely not. Right. So, which everyone was experimenting with whether or not you could do that, but there's just no substitute for, hey, I heard that person speak. I liked what they were saying about their book. Here is their book. I'm going to take a chance. And all of that happening in a 10-minute space. If it's 4 clicks away and now you're not, there's no point. Right. There's the
connection, right? They make a connection with you in that event, in that physical space. They come down to your after your panel or whatever. They come down to your table and they continue the conversation with you there, and you have another chance to kind of to sell them on the book. So there's more interaction there. I find the virtual events to be very passive for the most part. People sit and watch. Maybe they'll have questions for the speakers and that kind of stuff, but other than that, they don't click beyond that. They don't tend to not click deeper into the chat or whatever to get at the actual. And again, a lot of people are still somewhat, I mean, I know that everyone's buying online now because we have to, but I think that overall people still prefer, I certainly still prefer in-person shopping to online shopping. I still would rather buy something in person. So
yeah, without a doubt. I'm the same.
We should probably wrap it up. We're getting close.
Yes, we should. Well, we have ranged all over about the foibles and futures of shows and publishing. It's been nice to return to the conversation with you, gents, on this inaugural episode of the new season. See what I did there, Dan? Inaugural. Of Super Pulp Science. This is Gregory Kamichuk encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.